If for some reason chapters don't work, I'm pinning a comment with timestamps so you can skip to the part that interests you instead of watching the entire video. You won't notice anisotropic filtering in this game, so just set it to medium for that 1%. Dropping shadow quality to ultra is totally worth it. You probably won't be able to tell the difference between extreme and ultra. If you're tempted with that 13% performance boost for turning shadows off, don't. Just look at the comparison. Night shadows realistically affect only dynamic shadows cast by the car headlights. You could leave it on, but honestly, you most likely wouldn't see the difference while racing anyway. Motion blur quality makes no difference in visuals, so just set it to low. Texture quality can be dropped down to ultra for some extra FPS boost, but lower than that is just a no-go. Something weird happens to textures while it's dark, which makes the game look bad. On top of that, setting it to high forces environment geometry to drop to high, and I don't recommend dropping it that low either. So keep environment texture and environment geometry on ultra. Anti-Aliasing in this game isn't really necessary, but on the other hand, all sort of vegetation looks grainy without FXAA. So to be honest, I would recommend MSAA on 2 and FXAA on lower resolutions. If you use 1440p and up, probably just stick to FXAA. Screen space ambient occlusion doesn't really give you any performance boost until you turn it off, which I wouldn't recommend. Reflection quality affects only cars and nothing really changes until you drop it to medium. To see a decent FPS boost, you have to get down to low, but at that point, the reflections are such low resolution and low refresh rate. If you're considering it, I would suggest setting them to very low, where all the reflections are going to be a simple cube map. World car level of detail affects smaller details on cars that are going to be almost unnoticeable unless you're just standing still admiring your car. I'd personally set it to high. Screen space reflections only affect water and wet surfaces. Honestly, you won't be able to tell the difference between ultra and high, yet can get 4.5% higher FPS. Wouldn't turn it off though, because wet asphalt just looks weird. Better set it to low. It's worth turning lens effects to high at almost no visual cost. If you don't like effects like water droplets on your screen, then this setting can turn them off. Shader quality does so many things, like forces other settings to lower values, but let's keep it short. Do not go below ultra. If you think that medium is going to give you 19% on top of all the other settings, then that's not the case. It sets shadows to ultra and turns off SSAO. That's where the performance boost comes from. You'd be better off dropping those settings yourself and leave this on ultra, and at least then the game wouldn't look as bad. You can set particle effects to medium without being able to tell any difference. Don't go all the way down or your sandstorms are going to just vanish. Well, unless you want to see the road during sandstorms, then be my guest. Big difference in motion blur strength between long and short, but no difference in performance. If you prefer playing with motion blur on, I'd stick with short, cause long seems a bit too strong. You can also drop it for 2.5% higher performance, but motion blur is a personal preference, so I won't be recommending anything here. Resolution scaling in this game is fine. I'd honestly recommend setting it to ultra quality. You could go lower, but the lower you go, the more of these shadowy lines you see on the road, to the point where they get really distracting. That's why I wouldn't really go any lower than quality here. Overall, with my optimized settings, you can get around 83% higher FPS without really skimping on the visuals. Even if you decide not to use resolution scaling, you should still be around 66% ahead.